who's the biggest star and the person that you think drives pay-per-view for the UFC?
But I would argue the UFC's past that. I would argue that the UFC is going to put on 40
There's a
shows a
person,
year.
there's a person that still drives pay-per-view.
Okay, let me
Who's
think.
that?
So, heavyweight. Oh, I know.
Yep,
We're talking about Jon Jones.
exactly. So
Okay.
how important is it now, right? How important is it now? Because the rumor was Jon Jones was going to fight Tom Aspinall in July at International Fight Week, the big blowout that will sell him boatload of pay-per-view as
Yeah.
the deal starts to get to the end of the year.
Yeah.
Jon Jones just said 3 minutes ago that the window for fighting in July against Tom Aspinall may be passing because he feels he needs 6 months to
Well, you know
prepare
what
for
this is? This is exactly what we just talked about.
what?
A leverage. This is leverage. Jon Jones is saying, I know I'm the biggest star in the UFC right now. I know this is the biggest fight. And I don't, and right, sometimes the biggest fight is not the biggest star, but in this case, it's probably the
It's
same
the
one.
biggest fight. Yep.
The fight that we want to see the most, the only one that would be second to this would be Topuria Makachev. That's the only other one that is right in the same level, in my opinion. And so Jon Jones is saying, well, I want 6 months, but if you're gonna make it 4 months, then I'm gonna need a little more money.
He said, "What? But do you think how important is it though that the UFC makes this fight happen now?
I think this is what Dana's been fighting is. I actually don't think it's that important, and
Really?
I think Dana has made a point over. I mean, this has been the last 15 years of trying to almost like quell the stars, trying to not let the stars get too big, and like Connor got too big,
Yeah,
and
but
that's
but see, I got to disagree a little bit
why is that?
because I feel that they did everything to try to push you into the mainstream to make you a star. That's why I was able to do the things that I
Yeah,
did because they continuously pushed me in front of people to make me a star, Ben. And that's not me going, well, I'm a UFC guy. I love the UFC. I
yeah,
was the champion for a long time.
yeah.
So I know what they did for me as a champion to try and make sure that I was recognizable. Dude, I swear to
How
God,
many
Ben,
times did you put Dana over the barrel though and say you want, right? Because I think there's different. Like I
Ben,
know
we
you.
did
I
it
know.
the same day. You and I went into a deal to make a deal the same day
Yeah, I
where
know
I
that.
said, I want X, Y, and Z. And they said, no.
Yeah.
We talked about this where he said,
Yeah,
no.
I know, but we think of like so on the other side of this, you have a Francis Ngannou, which had a very ugly dispute. You
Yes.
had Conor McGregor, you've had the Diaz brothers, you've had
Yes.
many people. If I thought about it hard, I'd probably think of another three or four more,
Yes.
especially earlier. Like
Yes.
Randy Couture was a huge one really early
Yes.
on. Tito Ortiz was a big one. And so
Yes.
you had these stars that were constantly just doing this with Dana because Dana didn't want them to have too much leverage and get too big of stars, right? And so he probably knew you. I'm gonna. I don't know if you're gonna take this as a compliment or a dig. It is meant as a compliment. You are smart. You are intelligent. You probably knew just how to push just enough to get mostly what you wanted, but not be a total asshole. You
But
know,
yeah, yeah, I get it. I get it, Ben. But
because some of
again,
these guys are unreasonable. They're saying Dana's
yes.
thinking in his head, okay, they're getting paid 5 million. Dana's thinking, okay, he's probably really worth 11 million. I'm just throwing numbers out here. And the guy comes out and says, I want 25. And
Yes.
he's like, oh, cause this is fucking ridiculous.
Yes. 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 I get it.
And
But
Daniel
some
probably said,
things,
I want 9. And he probably said, okay, well, he's worth 11. He asked for 9. Sure, great deal. Let's do it.
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how negotiations go. Anytime you have a
Yes.
successful negotiation, both sides feel a little bit bad
Yeah.
about the negotiation.
Or a little
Nobody's
bit good
completely
too.
happy.
A little bit good too.
You feel good about it, but you're like, I feel like I left something on the table,
Yes.
and the company feels like we paid a little bit too much. That's what a
Yes.
great negotiation feels like.
Agreed.
But then at the end of the day, you go, well, I'm still pretty happy where I settled at, even though it
Yes.
wasn't exactly what I wanted. But bro, if Jon Jones
Wait,
said
so
publicly,
did you take that as a compliment or an insult that I said you were
uh,
smart and reasonable
well,
and not like
because
some of
I'm
these other
reasonable.
guys?
Here's the
Yes.
deal, though. We lived in a world where we wrestled for $3,000 to win a tournament. So it's like
Less
for
less than
me,
that sometimes.
yes, less than that if you didn't win the freaking tournament. You win the hardest
Yes.
tournament in the summer.
Yeah.
The U.S. Open was $3,000, bro, when we were wrestling.
$3,000, three thousand
And
dollars. I was
everybody
pumped to
wrestled.
get $3,000 in the
And
mail.
everybody wrestled. And everybody
Yeah.
wrestled. It wasn't the U.S. Open of today. It was like
Yeah.
number 1 to 10 was in that bracket.
Yeah.
So yes, I could always call back to those $3,000 if somebody's offering me $3 million. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I could go back to making $3 grand, to wrestle or coach wrestling and make $250,000 a year if I'm lucky and feel happy about it.
Yeah.
So yes, I had those experiences to call back on to make sure I stayed reasonable. But at the end of the day, those guys do deserve their money. And I do believe that because of the work that the UFC does, they are in a position to make that money. Granted, the fighting skill needs to be there. You got to be the champion or you have no leverage. But once you get there, the work that's put in allows you to go, I need 7 figures now. I don't need that. But again, Jon Jones said publicly it would take $30 million, right? Now he's saying money talks, but time. I need time.
I don't see that as to me, I look at that and I say, Jon doesn't really need that much time. John's asking for more money. He's saying, if you want to rush me, he said, I'd prefer 6 months. I would prefer that.
No. Jon literally said, I'll read it to you.
Read it to me exactly.
I'll read it to you exactly. It said, Jon Jones wants 6 months to prepare for Tom Aspinall fight once it's locked in. Money talks, but it feels like if summer is the goal, it's starting to slip away a bit. Money's good. Like, even if you bring me the money, the timing is what I need to fight this guy. Why? Do you think that he's just kind of steering into this whole, he just doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall thing? Because Tom Aspinall was celebrating after Pereira lost because he felt like Jon Jones could not use Pereira anymore as a crutch to try to make that fight.
To Tom Aspinall, 100%.
What'd you say?
That was very helpful to Tom Aspinall. I mean, there's nothing else obvious. Like now it's Jones versus Aspinall. There's no other option. So yes, that was very helpful to him. I still see it that way. It's like, I mean, listen, you've done this. You've done something with other people where you say, listen, here's what I want. And if you want me to do something that's a little more inconvenient for myself, then I want another 25% or I want another 30%. Like, if you want me to inconvenience myself and fight in 3.5 months instead of 6, then you're going to have to make it worth my time. But there is a number that's worth my time.
Yeah. What do you think that number is for Jones?
I mean, I don't know what his actual paycheck is, but I would say, maybe he's asking for a 20, 30, 40% bump, something like that.
Do you think that Jon Jones is worth paying $15 million?
I would have to know the exact metrics. I would probably say no, and I would go back to my argument.
Only Conor, right? Only Conor would be worth paying $15 million.
I don't even know. I mean, like,
Conor had a $22 million gate whenever he pulled out of that fight with Michael Chandler on the pre-sale.
Yes. Well, so there's obviously the gates, but I think what UFC is, their work, like you said, the TV deal is going to be much more lucrative than the
Can you imagine
gates? Well, so I think they're saying is like they're probably going to a Netflix or right, because that's the big rumor, is like, how many subscribers can we bring you, right? And so they're looking at like a total of how many unique people watch a UFC event through the course of a whole year, which is all 40 events, and that's probably what Netflix is paying on. So I suppose if there was one really insanely huge event, and to me that's Conor, not Jon, right? Jon
Aspinall could be that event.
Tom Aspinall could be a big one, right? Where people who are, because you got to think of like, what was a really annoying one that was kind of like this.
What?
It's so annoying. Jake Paul, Mike Tyson.
Every
dipshit on the street had some opinion about it,
bro.
Like that they don't watch any boxing. That was the only boxing fight they watched the whole year. But they remember Mike Tyson from 1997, and there's this influencer kid. They want to have some opinion. So it's like, that is going to be a unique buy who's not going to watch any other, right? So it's who can cause unique buys for the UFC that isn't going to happen otherwise. To me, that's Conor or Brock Lesnar, but he's not fighting.
He's not fighting anymore. He's almost 50, I think. Yeah. But I think that they need to make this fight. I think Jon's kind of steering into this. I feel like so. Jon likes to play into people going, he's afraid of Tom Aspinall. He doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. When you and I have discussed this many, many times, he's not afraid of Tom Aspinall. He'll fight Tom Aspinall. You believe me?
I said he would much prefer to fight someone else. That was my take last time. Don't you remember how mad I was that I like Stipe, so it drove me crazy that I had to. Stipe hadn't fought in like 4 years.
Yeah, it was over, bro. That was bad.
That was crazy.
So bad. He got beat so bad.
Oh man, I really wanted to fight Tom Aspinall on that one.
Yeah, that's I think it's important. I think he's messing around with people, man, and I think it's fun for this dude because this dude's made a lot of money and he's been the champion for so long that he
Yes.
really doesn't need to fight anybody anymore.